trauma I went to was Glenn T. Nygren, who is deceased. He was the dean at Hunter College, who had to approve my matriculating back into undergraduate school. He did a very courageous decision. Of course, you can come back.
So that call, what you're referring to as intuition, took you in a better direction. Your life has shown that. How do you differentiate between what you're calling intuition and fear?
Fear?
What if your father had said to you, well, maybe you're just afraid to go through dental school. You need to give it more time. You're afraid. You got to push past this feeling.
Yeah, fear was not an issue with me. It was just basically doing, in subsequent years, I do a lot of talks with young kids at school. I said the only way to be successful is to do what you love and love what you do. Mm-hmm. In today's society, you got to work very hard. It's a very competitive society. And I found what I love doing. I worked very hard at Goldman Sachs. The second example I give you of intuition, to digress back to where we were talking before. Mm-hmm. And when I graduated Columbia Business School, I was a very attractive package. I was Beta Gamma Sigma, which was the equivalent of Phi Beta Kappa in business. I was the Wall Street Journal Student Achievement Award recipient. I was straight A's in finance. As a 6-month-old child, I knew what I wanted, so it was a very attractive package. Back then, I had 16 job offers, 4 of which were for more money. I'm very anal. I show up on time. I do what I say I'm going to do. And it was one of the few times in my life I passed a deadline without acting. So I got a call from the guy who made me the job offer. He's also deceased. I'm either emeritus and everything now or deceased. All my buddies are deceased, unfortunately, including my closest friend, my older brother who died 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the fellow who made me the offer called me up and said, "Lee, we're disappointed we haven't heard from you. What can we say?" So I said, "Bob, I'm dead broke, but I have 4 job offers for more money, but I liked everybody I interviewed at Goldman Sachs. The offer was for $12,500 a year. I said, do you think I can make $25,000 a year in 5 years? And I knew the compound interest tables. If you double something in 5 years, it's 15% compounded. He said, if you work hard and keep your nose clean, I think you could do it. I said, okay, I'm coming to Goldman.
What did that mean? When you say 12 to 25, that means you're getting that money raises, or you're getting that level of investment?
No, my income grew from 12.5, which was the offer, to 25,000. I actually made 180,000 the 5th year, and the 9th year I was made general partner of the firm. Now, when I say intuition, I liked everybody I met. Goldman was only one of the few firms that didn't change their name for 150 years. And when I joined the firm, it was probably a $5 or $10 million earner. When I was made a partner in 1976, they earned $40 million. When I retired in 1991, they earned $1.8 billion. And I was there for the entire run. So I made a great deal of money working at Goldman Sachs.
They say they're the best of the best. They've got all these finance whizzes. You come in there. How do you figure out to rise up that quickly to partner and have the run?
Well, the best way to succeed in any business is to do what your boss wants you to do and to understand your objectives. So I joined the firm as an analyst, and the job was to do the kind of research that would get buy-side institutions. In other words, Goldman was on the sell side. We sold our research to institutions that manage money. And the goal was to get the people who do more business with you because they thought you would give them better quality insights, better quality information, service them better. And so I rose in the ranks as a research analyst, and then I was made partner in charge of research in 1976, effective January 1 of 77. And I also carried water on 2 shoulders. I also was a chief investment strategist, which is where I made my reputation.
And when you did leave to start your hedge fund, they said, okay, you got to hire 2 people to fill the vacancy that one person left. What does that tell you?
Well, I worked hard, but I didn't mind. I got rewarded. I was very lucky. I was very lucky to be at Goldman Sachs.
Were you working harder than other people, though, if they had to fill you with 2?
Well, I was in the first in every morning. I got in at, before 7 in the morning every morning.
First in of everyone at Goldman?
Yeah.
And that's already...
Not at Goldman, in my department.
In your department. But that's already a lot of motivated people, no?
When I took over the research department, we were unranked in the institutional investor poll. All these surveys that try to measure your effectiveness. So there was Financial World, the Institutional Investor, All America team, and then there was the Greenwich Research. Charlie Ellis started Greenwich Research. And we were largely unranked when I took over the research department. And after a number of years of running it, from 1976 to 1991, we went from unranked to #1 in virtually all these polls. and I was voted #1 in investment strategy for 9 consecutive years. So that was my job, and I did my job well. You can't go higher than #1. And it was not just me, it was really the effectiveness of the entire team. It was sales, research, and trading working together as a team.
So you like going #1, who doesn't, in anything competitive or business, but you also have quoted Carnegie saying you have to surround yourself with more knowledgeable people. So how do you balance that?
Well, very simple. As Carnegie said, he wanted as his epithet, here lies a man. I modified a little bit, here lies a man or woman. You know, back in 1900 when he made that comment, women were not an important part of the labor force. But I would say, here, he wanted as his epithet, here lies a man or woman wise enough to bring into his service men or women smarter than he. So I've always had the philosophy of try to find the very best people, surround yourself with the very best people. I've given him a shout out in my book. He deserves it. He's terrific. Steve Einhorn. I hired him from Prudential Insurance to work for me at Goldman for a number of years. And after I retired, he retired from Goldman, and I gave him an opportunity to join me at Omega. And he's done a terrific job.
And you also seem to prize people who might have a little bit of the hustle that you and your family had. Hustle is a word people use today very positively to say you really have to have that even above credentials. And you talk about the PhD that you're interested in is different. What do you mean by that?
Like poor, hungry, and driven. You know, basically, I don't hire for a resume. Anybody I hired, I always told them the story about the gazelle and the lion. And I explained, it's a parable. You know, every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up, even though it knows it must run faster than the fastest lion it will be eaten. And every morning in Africa, a lion wakes up and knows it must be faster than the slowest gazelle or will starve to death. It doesn't matter whether you're a gazelle or a lion. When the sun comes up, you better be running. And that was I wanted to hire those people that understood the need for hard work. You know, we charge a premium fee, and if somebody's going to pay you 2% management fee and 20% of the profits, they have every reason to expect a superior performance.
Well, at Omega, you described this competition, and you're coming out of Goldman, so you have, at that point, you're very established, you have credentials, you're putting your money in first, which is, of course, telling people how much you believe in the plan.
Warren Buffett is famous for saying he eats his own cooking.
Right.
I eat my own cooking. I started Omega. I took all the money I can get out of Goldman, but you had to leave a lot of money in the firm when you retired. I put $35 million into Omega.
And you're how old at this point?
This was 1992. I was born in 1943.
Yeah.
So it was 50-something.
Yeah, so you're very much upper mid-career by the traditional standard, by the Social Security standard.
I could have retired from Goldman, and that worked.
So you take that $35 million and you go out to whom to get money? I mean, how does that work when you launch one of these?
I go out to the different prospective investors. And I raised a few $100 million, and we had a good record. We beat the S&P by several hundred basis points. Had a couple of lumps along the way.
Which we can get into. You touch on them in your book. But at that juncture, just so people understand, because we're charting how you got all the way up to this summit. And then you're up here.
Well, I had a rising tide that lifted all the ships, the market.
But here's my question. If somebody has that much money, they have choices, and they can go with a fund that has a track record. And they can go with people that have a track record. Your track record is strong. It's internal to Goldman. But what are you saying to them to say, put your money in what is a new, I think it's fair to say, untested fund?
Well, here's a kid from the South Bronx that had no money. Had $35 million to put in and had a track record of outperformance with Goldman. And I said I had the ability both to pick good stocks and to manage people. Because when I ran the research department, we had well over 100 people that had to manage, supervise, and direct. And as I mentioned earlier, we went from unranked to #1. So I was an orchestra leader and a soloist. Soloist as a strategist, an orchestra leader as a head of research.
Do you have any memorable no's that you got when you were first canvassing?
Oh, yeah. I'd rather not mention those people.
Well, you don't have to say their name, but where you say, hey, here's the pitch, and they say, no thanks, Leon, or you're
my
out
most
past...
memorable story is a guy, what happened is my retirement from Goldman was announced in August of 1991. And the fiscal year for Goldman